Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another discussion video. This is actually a part 2 to the dislike video I made uh, not long ago. Originally I wasn't going to do another dislike video, but I think that the response to it was pretty good. A lot of comments on it, and a lot of the comments that were mentioned in that video I completely forgot to talk about because I shared a lot of those dislikes. Look, I don't want to make it sound like, we're all, or at least I am, bitter about this hobby because because I'm talking about, or we're all talking about the things that we dislike about it. And one would ask, well, why are you still in it? Of course, the good outweighs the bad. But I think sometimes when we talk about the bad, we're bringing to light some of the things that obviously we really don't like within the hobby, and maybe some things can change. And we'll talk more about that as we go on. But for this video, I just got a couple more things that I wanted to mention that I probably should have included in the first video about the things that I don't necessarily like about the hobby. And that can go many ways, many different directions. It could be about collecting. It could be about those that we interact with when it comes to collecting. It could also be about other things related to collecting. It's not just one specific area. All right. But again, I just wanted to reiterate that just because I'm talking about, or you respond to some of the things that you dislike about the hobby, I'm sure that we all really enjoy this hobby. And for many of us, it was an escape, right? It was an escape. And I'm going to touch up more about this in a future discussion video. But I just wanted to say it right here. I think a lot of us are in this hobby, and we're in this hobby for many different reasons, of course. It's not, we're just bitching about this or bitching about that. We're in it for a lot of reasons, a lot of good reasons, too. But, when it comes to a video like this, there are those occasional things that we dislike. And I'll talk to you about them a little bit more. And I'll mention some of the things that you mentioned in the comments. For anyone who doesn't read the comments, we could bring some of those things to light. All right, I got two more points to bring up. One refers to sellers and one refers to buyers. I'll start with the sellers first. One of the things that drives me crazy when it comes to this hobby and dealing with some sellers, whether it's online or in person, a lot of times when you're looking at a book, or you ask to see a book, or you see advertised on a book, raw book, a seller would write down, or the seller would tell you, here, this is a such and such copy. Oh, send it off to CGC and grade it. It's grader, or it's grading ready, so to speak. And sometimes you'll see that a lot. A lot of times you see that on eBay. Whatever you're looking for, Amazing Spider-Man this, send to CGC, or grade it, or whatever. And a lot of times I think people fall for that. They say, oh, wow, yeah, this is definitely the book to get. Then, oh, it must be a really high grade, must be a really good copy. But I sit back and I say to myself, the dealer's telling me to grade it. Why didn't you grade it? The dealer is out there to make money. We can all agree, right? It's out there to make money. Now, when you send things to CGC and you think you're going to get a high grade, whatever the book is, a 9.6, a 9.8, whatever it is, you're sending it to CGC as a grader so that you can sell it and make good money. Well, if that's the case, how come he or she is not sending it to CGC? I'll tell you the reason why. It's because he's probably not going to get the grade he thinks he's going to get. And he's trying to sell it off to you, say, hey, well, maybe this is a grade you want to get. You do it. You grade it. It just never ceases to amaze me how sometimes some people fall for that. Or maybe some people, don't fall for that. I don't know. But it's something that I do see a lot, especially online, on eBay. One more thing about sellers before I move on to buyers. There's quite a few things I always pick on sellers, but I want to pick on some buyers too. One more thing though about sellers, and so I think someone mentioned this in the comments. Sometimes sellers, they price a book based on what they think it's going to press out as, right? A lot of times you'll maybe go to a show. I say, can I see that book? I'm like, yeah, I think with a press, this is going to be an 8.5, or it's going to be a 9.6, or it's going to be something like that. And they're charging you what they think it's going to press out as an excuse for them to charge more. Maybe some sellers don't do that, but I've seen a lot of sellers, and I've heard of a lot of sellers doing that. They're charging a price which they think it's going to press out as. So if you have an 8.0 and the price of an 8.0 is, like, let's say $150, they're charging maybe $300 or $275 because they think that 8.0 is going to press out to a 9.4, right? Or maybe a 9.6. You do see that often. And for those that go to the cons, and whether it's a big con or a small con, keep your eyes peeled for that when you're talking to a seller. I mentioned before in one of the comments, matter of fact, I mentioned this to Tony Toth, friend. We see each other at cons, and we'll text each other every now and then. And I mentioned my response to his comment, I think this is very true, and I might have mentioned this in another video. Sometimes, one last point before I go on to the buyers. Sometimes, when you're looking to buy a book from a seller, finding the right comic book seller can be a challenge. It's almost like trying to find the right mechanic for your car. You want to find somebody that is trustworthy and who has a decent price. I guess that's relative. But those are some of the things and other things you look for in a seller. So for those of you that are out there that haven't thought of this concept, I think most of you have. When it comes to finding a seller, you want to get big books, you want to get medium-sized books, key books, whatever it is. It's important to find a seller that you trust. And sometimes that's hard, but it's important for you to find a seller that you trust. I have seven, I think I mentioned this in the last video. I have several sellers that I trust. I trust them because I know they're not going to try to, charge an outrageous amount. I trust them because their grading standards are relatively close to mine, if not a little bit better than mine. Many reasons to try to find a seller that you trust. And a lot of times you go on eBay. For a lot of us, we all go on eBay. Or you may go to the smaller cons. You see sellers that are just, you're wondering what's going on. But it can be a challenge. But once you find that person, or once you find those people, it's easier to get books. Sometimes the price is still high, of course, right? But you feel a little more comfortable with buying with a certain person. I prefer to go to certain people before I go to eBay. And quite often I'll reach out to these people that I trust before I start looking on eBay or other online sites. So now I want to go to buyers. And occasionally I will sell something, just like maybe some of you. You want to get out of the hobby you want to sell. You want to get rid of a couple of things to get bigger things. We all sell for our own reasons. And it doesn't necessarily make us a flipper or a traditional seller. It's just that sometimes we sell things to move stuff that we no longer want, or whatever. Many different reasons. Many different reasons, excuse me. Now, I'm giving sellers a hard time, but I got to give buyers a hard time too. Sometimes you meet that buyer that's just a schmuck. We talked about sellers that sometimes can be shady. And I hear that word greedy thrown around a lot. Well, what is greedy? Let's be honest now. I understand that people that are trying to sell something for an exorbitant amount of money can be seen as greedy, but I just want to touch up on this as it's come into my head. But just because somebody's trying to make a profit on something, a decent sized profit, doesn't mean they're greedy. I think there's this sense in our society today, if somebody wants to make a decent amount of money off a product, they're immediately greedy. I think that's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. Grow up. If there's a seller out there that's trying to make money, naturally he wants to make money, and he wants to try to get as much as he can for whatever reason. Wants to buy something for himself, wants to do something for his family. Who are you to judge? Now, I understand, like I said a few moments ago, there are situations where somebody seems really greedy. I get that. And there is a level of greed out there, not just in this hobby, but in other things in the world. But just to assume that someone wants to make a decent sized profit on something, oh, they're greedy, that's BS. I don't agree with that at all. I think that's childish to say that. Again, when it comes to buyers, we'll relate this to buyers. If you're selling something and you want to make $100 profit, God forbid, right? And you get these certain sellers that ask you, buyers, excuse me, that ask you, well, what did you pay for it? None of your business what I paid for it. Do you say that to the person that's been collecting for 30, 40, 50 years and decided, hey, I want to get out of this, and was buying these books at 30, 40, 50 cents and says, well, I paid 50 cents when it first came out? What does that have to do with anything, what you paid for it? Look, this is what the price is. And I'm all for giving a discount on a price. I've done that before, and I'll do it again when I sell. I have no problem with that. I like a discount when I buy, so I will give a discount to somebody. But then there are people that want a discount on the discount. Like, for instance, I was talking with somebody recently, and he sells a lot. And he said something like, he'll give a certain percentage off for people. But that's never good enough. They always want more off. And of course, it's good to always get a deal. We all want deals. I want a deal. You want a deal. Some of the big YouTubers who may have deep pockets want a deal. We all do. I get that. But there comes a point where people just want more. It's like they're taking advantage. You're accusing somebody of being greedy, yet you're trying to take advantage of somebody. Look, if you don't like the price, you can go. There'll be somebody else that will pay my price or your price or relatively close to that price. We're all replaceable in that regard. I could be replaceable as a buyer. I could be replaceable as a seller. Nobody's saying that you have to buy this at this price. No one's putting a gun to your head. And because somebody wants a certain amount for a book does not make them greedy. Okay? But you get some buyers that are like that. That are very much like that. One of my favorites was the people. This was going around a couple years ago, where people were buying comics. At least my experience, and I think I said this, buying a comic, and then they contact me saying that their credit card was hijacked, their account was hijacked, and somebody bought the comic, and that wasn't them. That doesn't make any sense. So somebody hijacked your account, right, to buy a book, whatever it is, expensive, not expensive, whatever it is, and that book automatically goes to your address. So why would they buy a book if it wasn't going to be going to them? I can understand somebody wanting to hijack your account so they could spend your money on something that they're going to get. But they're spending your money on something that you're going to get. That doesn't make any sense. The point I'm trying to make is maybe there have been situations like that where it's just bizarre. But the excuses that people come up with in this hobby and in other hobbies is just so embarrassing. I mean, some people have absolutely no shame in what they say. They bought something and they say the stupidest things. And you could ask some of the other people that sell. Okay? Dealers, people on YouTube, whomever. Some of the bizarre things that people say in order to get a discount on a book or to get a refund on the book. Some of this, sometimes there are legitimate reasons why people want to get a refund. I get that. But then some of the things that people say are just so bizarre and so ridiculous. I'm sure if you're a seller watching, you've encountered this every now and then. It may not be the majority, and I'm not trying to say it's the majority. Certainly, I don't believe that. I've had a couple of sellers that are awesome that I go to. If I'm selling like an EC book, I know somebody to contact that will most of the time buy them. And I'm all for giving him a discount. Absolutely. I have no problem with that. He buys it and we're all good. And if he had a problem with it, I would definitely give him his money back. I always, if I sell on eBay, I'm not one of those seller does not accept returns. Well, guess what? You do accept a return. You do. Because if eBay feels that you didn't put something in that listing or you didn't describe something very well, it doesn't matter how much you have seller does not accept returns, guess what? You now accept a return. It's ridiculous. Oh, I'm not going to give you your money back. What? Give me a break. But yeah, that's more for sellers. But yeah, sometimes you get buyers that are like that, that just say the ridiculous things or try to scam you. You know, I'm sure some of you had horror stories about buyers that try to scam you. It's really something. The last one I want to say, before I just mention a couple of things from the comments, because I know this video has gone already a little too long. Sometimes you get buyers that, and I'm sure sellers can agree with this, that contact you because they want that massive deal, because they want to avoid paying all those taxes and they want to avoid paying shipping. They'll be willing to spend $900 on a comic book, but because it's $15 or $20 shipping, that's a deal breaker. It's so ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You're willing to spend that much money, but because you got to pay $20 shipping or $15 shipping to ensure that you get good shipping for that $900 purchase you just made, that's a deal breaker. Or because you got to pay taxes. That's ridiculous to me. But it's also ridiculous because it's all about them. Me, me, me. Very narcissistic view. I don't care about everybody else. Look, you got to pay taxes. You got to pay shipping. People got to pay taxes. I don't want to pay taxes either. I don't want to pay taxes in real life, but I got to pay them. You don't want to pay shipping. Well, shipping costs money. You want it packed well. Sometimes the supplies cost money. If you're not reusing supplies that you get from your purchases, right? Because a lot of us, I think, do that. But if you're somebody that has to constantly restock, whether it's bubble wrap or these little things, maybe inexpensive, but it still costs something. You want it shipped out at a good rate. Priority mail or FedEx or UPS, because you want to make sure that your customer gets what he or she ordered in the condition, because we already discussed in previous videos of mine, the mail, they don't care. They'll throw it around. They'll stack things on top. Doesn't matter how much they put those stickers on, or doesn't matter how many times you write fragile on it. They don't care. Or at least that's been my experience. Maybe that's unfair to say of everybody. But people are so concerned about what they have to pay, the extras that they have to pay, that you just simply have to pay. But do you ever consider the extras that the seller has to pay? The seller has to pay fees too. eBay fees, PayPal fees. It takes a chunk out of what you're buying for them. It takes a chunk out of their profit. So it's good to sometimes think that, well, yes, I understand I have to pay some extra fees, but so does the seller. You know, try to think of it, try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, and vice versa, buyer and seller. All right. Now, as I close this video, I just wanted to talk a couple more things. Someone in the comments talked about one of the things that bothers him is the shipping. I just started talking about shipping, and I completely forgot to talk about that. If you watched one of my videos, you know some horror stories I've had about shipping. I think I released one a couple months ago, and then there was another one about a year and a half ago. I'll just give you a brief example. I remember when I bought that X-Men #5, and it was a CG slab, and the guy sent it in just this bubble mailer about the size of the slab. No cardboard, nothing. Just put it in a bubble mailer. You open it up, and there's the slab. It wasn't even wrapped in anything. And I'm saying, what are you thinking? What were you thinking? You just sent the slab that way. Of course the slab came cracked and damaged. And when you email them, and this has happened before with other things, with just putting a bubble mailer and not putting cardboard, if it's just a raw book. What are you thinking? And I get the same answer, or generally the same answer. Oh, I've been doing this for a while. I've never had a problem. Or my favorite is, my friend told me to do this. What does your friend have to do with anything here? Oh, my friend said this. Who cares what your friend says? Your friend's an idiot just like you are. If that's the way you ship something like that. If anything of value. Give me a break. Give me a break. So yeah, shipping. Another one is, I thought this was interesting because this was something that I had to reflect on. The use of the term big boy books. Now, if anyone's watched my channel, I've used that term several times. And, I started hearing it from some other YouTubers, and I followed suit. And I was like, well, yeah, it's a big boy book. But how sometimes that may not, it's kind of offensive, I guess, to this person who left a comment. And I can understand. I don't want to attack. Because sometimes people can't afford the big boy books. The big boy books, right? And does that mean you're not a big boy when it comes to collecting? So I can understand that. That sometimes, people like, hey, there's a sense of judgment. I talked about elitism. in the last video, right? Well, saying big boy books might be part of elitism. I don't know. You decide on that. So I thought that was an interesting point that was brought up. And another last one before I end the video. People that are complaining that the grading companies are ruining the hobby. I got news for you. And I think I mentioned this in the last video too. There's always something that's happening that's ruining the hobby. There's always somebody, that person, with the cane that wants to hit you over the head saying, in my day, things were like this, and this is the end of our hobby. There might be some truth in some things that happen that might lead to the end of the hobby. No doubt. But I don't think grading is one of them. I remember when I came back to the hobby, I went to a comic book store and I saw a CGC slab on the wall. And I saw the number and I was like, oh my God, that is such a great idea. Because years ago, 20 years before that, I had that idea. I said, it'd be cool if you could store a comic in a hard case piece of plastic and have the grade on it. Because then it can't get damaged and you know exactly what it is. I remember I had that thought back in 1994. And then I saw that and I was like, wow, somebody finally did it. I think that was such a great idea. And then, of course, you get the people that say, oh, comic books are meant to be read. I got news for you. Games are meant to be played too. Yet they have their own grading company. And people are making money hand over fist on them. And some people want to keep them in the box to keep them from preventing the plastic to run out. Who are you to dictate how somebody's supposed to collect? Maybe I don't want to play that game. Maybe I want to download it and I'd like to have a physical copy brand new. Same thing with a comic. Maybe I don't need to keep reading Crime Patrol 15 in its original form. I want it in a slab. There are many reasons why people slab. We've discussed that on this channel many times. I mean, and what was the other point? Like, well, how long is it? CGC and these grading companies have been around for 20 years, mostly 20 years, and the hobby's still going strong. So how long does it take before the hobby's completely ruined? Is it going to dry up pretty soon? When? What's the date? Is it going to be 25 years, 30 years? What? There's some people that say the comic book hobby's been dying for years. I mean, I think there's some data out there when it comes to new comic book sales and all that stuff. I don't think it's that good. I could be wrong. Correct me in the comments. But I've heard things that were not looking so good. So I don't think CGC or the grading companies have anything to do with it. And I'm not a big fanboy of this. The grading companies, I like them. But I'm not like, a big fanboy where I must defend it. I remember that comment I had years ago with the Overstreet when I was saying it's kind of obsolete, and someone said, oh, I must defend the honor of the Overstreet guide. I like Overstreet. I think Overstreet grades very well. But, having the book come out once a year, it seems like it's a little... I mean, people like to read it, look at it, look at the articles, and I like doing that too. I think it's great. But to use it solely as a source to grade comics when it only comes out once a year. Now, maybe Overstreet has an online thing I don't know about. Maybe you could fill me in. But just to grade that, just to base comic book sales on that one book that comes out once a year, I don't know about that one. So, tell me, what other things you dislike? I mean, again, I think we could all agree that we love this hobby. We enjoy it, and sometimes when some of these things come up, it's upsetting because we love this hobby so much. But leave in the comments some of your thoughts that maybe you didn't catch in the first video, or some of the things that I didn't discuss in this video. It'd be interesting to read. Take care, everybody.